Welcome to the 64 Squares studio, where chess history comes to life, one classical battle at the time. Hello everyone, hope you're having a wonderful day and welcome back to the second episode of Decoding the Fisher, the great Bobby Fischer. And today he is playing in USA Junior Championship in the same year, 1955. He is 12 year old, and Robert James Fischer is white against David Amis. So let's see how Fischer played with the white pieces. He played e4 and David played e5, knight f3, knight c6. Those who know about the Fischer may expect him to play bishop to c4 or bishop to b5, but Fischer on his younger age played knight to c3, 2 knight opening, and we converted to 4 knight defense. And on move number 4, already Fischer made an inaccurate move, bishop to c4, an opening inaccuracy, which is very common knowledge nowadays, even on 1955, that it is inaccurate because of knight into e4, which was played by David. And it is inaccurate because let's say you play knight takes e4, d5, bishop d3, pawn takes, bishop takes, and let's say black plays bishop d6, bishop c5, or bishop e7 even, castles and get f5, then black is doing very well. I mean, black has a bishop very open position and better center, but that's the main line. And I mean, you don't play bishop to c4, but Fischer in this position goes for ambitious idea, which is bishop takes f7. Also somewhat wrong, because after king takes f7, knight takes e4, it looks like black king is misplaced, but after d5, knight g5 and king g8. Now if you look at the position, there is no way to get to this king with your queen at least. Black has the center, black has the bishop pair, black has better development, easier development. This bishop gets to d6, this gets to g4, and you have nothing to show for it. And black also gains the semi-open f5. So you have to claim something back in the center. So Fischer played pawn to d4. This is still the main line. And a lot of people have seen a lot of people playing e4 directly, but after knight e5 it's kind of complicated. But David Amis correctly played pawn to h6, which is intermezzo and the main move. Now the knight does not have a very good square, has to go to h3, and this position has been reached a lot of time before this match in 1955. Max Sauer, for example, the world champion, and Edward Lasker, who was a great player, both had the black pieces and won their respective games by playing bishop into h3, which looks like a very good move. The game continued bishop h3, gh3, and e4. Eventually, black was able to win by playing bishop d6, king here and this here. But in this position, at least according to my database, David Amis played a novelty in 1955, which was bishop to g4, and it was in this position that we have a completely new game, as I said. I know that there are many games which was played before this game with bishop g4, but on the top level, there was none, and this is not a top level either. So yeah, but it is a very strong novelty. It's a good move, because the idea is now e4 is a big threat because this bishop is pinning the knight, right? So you have to take the pawn, and after knight takes e5, now my simple threat is take on h3. So you have to defend it, you have to remove the knight. Knight f4 played by Fischer, attacking the d5 pawn, c6 defense, and h3 to get rid of the bishop. Knight takes f3. Now, if you had black pieces, you wouldn't want to give up the bishop pair. But in this position, after takes and queen f6, now black idea is quite simple. Rook e8, bishop d6, king s7, rook f8, and as soon as you move this knight, this pawn will fall, and that is the end of the entire thing. I mean, your king is in the center, black is much better placed. Black is actually completely winning. But David Amis played knight into f3, which is quite sensible to keep the bishop pair. And with his next move, bishop e3, Fischer is very directly hinting at the long castle, because of course you cannot castle short with this structure. And which explains the David's next move, which was a mistake. He played bishop to b4 check. Now, in normal circumstances, I would say queen to f6 with the simple idea which we have already shown. Again, would have been the best way to continue. And but you have to understand that David thought that bishop b4 checks, provoking c3 and going back with bishop a5 makes this bishop a very strong piece if this king decided to castle. So that's why he played this particular bishop b4 check. But he missed Fischer's next move, which was rook to g1. A very strong move by Fischer. Idea being that you don't have to castle. You can just play queen d4, rook d1, and this rook combining with this d4 queen or bishop on d4 has a very strong attack against the black king. And suddenly you have to be careful. Even though black is still quite winning, it's quite better for black, but you have to be careful. And David was not careful. He played queen to e8. Now, the idea might be to stop knight to h5 because, it does make sense to attack that g7 pawn with knight h5. But it actually invites a tactics which Fischer goes for. It's probably not the best move, but psychologically it makes your opponent think. And Fischer played knight into d5. Now, that's a free pawn. You cannot really capture it back. Because if you capture and after queen takes, it attacks both bishop and it attacks the king also. So that will recover the piece, at least. So you cannot do that. Oh, sorry about the weird arrow. But you don't have to. It opens up the d file as well, right? And with the d file open, your king is kind of little bit more weaker than before somehow. And Amis played queen to f7. Well, the threat was knight to f6 check to win the queen. So that makes sense. And now, okay, knight to f4 back because that was under attack. So black played rook e8 and okay, everyone expect Fischer to play queen d2 and go for a long castle, of course. But Fischer played a very good move in this position. See, even though black has a bishop pair, black is a pawn down, and you definitely want to exchange queens, right? So queen to b3, a very good move by Fischer. Only move which saves him, basically. Idea is if you play bishop to e6, well, there is a knight here, which can capture it, right? So, black played bishop to c7. Idea is if you capture the queen, king takes, and the game continues. But there is a very good move that both Fischer and David missed as white in this position. So try to pause the video and try to find what both players missed while I give you a couple of seconds as white to move. You have a very nice tactical opportunity here. Okay, so the move both of them missed is knight to h5. A good move, very direct, threatening the g7 pawn. The different idea is you cannot defend it with rook to h7 because of this pin, and this pin works in our favor because now I can play knight to f6 check, and well, there goes the rook, and that's it. So you cannot play that. So after, let's say, knight to h5, you have to defend the pawn. You have to play, let's say, bishop to e5. And then I will attack the bishop. Bishop goes back. It cannot goes back because then again I can take it. So you have to play bishop to e6 here. Now, queen to d1 is a very strong move and something you have to find. Well, you have to defend the knight now that this queen is no longer pinned. So it makes sense also. And now the bishop is just hanging, so you have to move the bishop to f6. And then after, let's say, queen to f3 and long castle coming up next. Actually, it is already quite better for white instead of being black because now this king is actually quite weak. So suddenly the things and dynamics changes and white got a good attack with this knight, this rook, and this queen combining, and someday bishop to d4 maybe. Let's say knight f6 and bishop d4 someday. So yeah, so that's the idea. So both of them missed it, and after bishop to c7, Fischer played, well, obvious queen takes f7 and king takes f7. Fischer is a pawn up though, but well, his h3 pawn is under attack. His knight can be, let's say I can exchange the knight. Actually, that knight is just hanging because there's a pain on the file. So his next move makes sense, knight to h5 to attack the g7 pawn. g6 attacks the knight. Knight to g3 attacks the bishop, but bishop moves away by taking the h3 pawn. Now, the situation has changed. There is a very symmetrical queen side on both sides, and the king side definitely black is better because black has a clean passed pawn. Combining it with the bishop pair that black has, it is, well, theoretically it should be a winning position. Now the question is, can David be able to convert this? Let's see. White just long castles because you have to get out of the pin on the e file. You have to get the rook on the a1 to in the attack also. And instant mistake by David Amis. Now I think most of us have realized that you have to push the pawns forward, right? Now h5 also makes sense here, but it gives away knight e4 followed by knight g5, which is annoying. So g5 is a good move in this position. I mean, h5, g5, both moves is kind of fine. Human perspective, I would play g5, blunt that bishop, and also stops the f pawn from moving. And one day I will play king g6 and exchange of all 4 rooks and be able to push the h pawn to the victory. That's a long term plan, but a mistake played here. As I said, rook to d8. Why it's a mistake? Because now after rook into d8, the thing is you cannot recapture with the rook because the h6 pawn hangs. Maybe David just forgot about that. Bishop takes d8 played, and well, rook to h1 is a simple nice little touch to get the h6 pawn. And after, let's say, bishop g2, which was played in the game, rook s6, bishop s6, bishop f3, and after bishop to e3, it was in this position that Robert James Fischer and David Amis agreed to a draw on move number 28. Well, what can I say? I mean, the position is still somewhat better for black because bishop pair and active king, and black can definitely push this position. Let's say b6 to stop bishop e7, and let's say king e6. I don't know, but what next? So it makes sense. It is much more drawish than the last one where Fischer agreed to a draw. But yeah, a curious game. Fischer played bishop c4 inaccuracy out of the opening, and he was struggling the entire time. Though he did find queen b3, he did miss knight h5 in that particular position. So yeah, another game, and Fischer finished this tournament with a score of 5 wins and 5 losses, and finished this tournament of 21 people, 10 matches Swiss round, in 11th place. So definitely not the strongest USA junior champion, at least at that time when he was 12. But yeah, he didn't show the sign of brilliancy which he will show soon. So let's keep an eye on him, and we'll see how he do in the next one. So yeah, if you like this video, then can you give it a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.